Welcome to another Webcast Wednesday. We're excited to bring you this super unique format today. We don't just have one guest, we actually have 6 for you. All of our internal SADD state coordinators from SADD National are going to talk about some unique driving situations that we see in and around our state areas, including some seemingly strange roadways or odd weather conditions that we all need to know how to navigate. So let's kick it off and head out to Arizona to hear from SC Michelle.
Hi, thank you. So in Arizona, summer means monsoons. So I thought now would be a good time to kind of talk about what to do if you are driving and encounter this type of weather. So have any of you heard the term haboob before?
Never.
Never? Okay. So a haboob is basically a super intense dust storm. Let me see if I can show you a picture. Can you see the picture? So it's basically like a towering wall of dust that can kind of overtake the area that it is in. So I'm going to go through and tell you kind of the steps to take if you are driving and you find yourself in a dust storm. So the first thing is obviously you want to try and avoid driving through a dust storm if at all possible. So when you leave, make sure you're aware of the weather. If the weather isn't great and you can avoid driving, then try and do that. Now, if you're already on the road and you find yourself in a dust storm, the steps I'm going to go through, you want to make sure that you take them immediately. So when you're first driving through a dust storm, it might just kind of get a little dark and there's obviously lots of dust and dirt around, but you can still see okay. That's when you want to start taking these steps. You do not want to wait until the visibility is minimal, because then it makes it harder to follow these steps. So the first thing that you're going to do is look around you and make sure you're aware of any other cars on the road. Make sure you know if there's cars in front of you, on either side, behind you, where they're at. And then from there, you're going to begin slowing down so that you can safely pull off the road. When you're pulling over, you want to make sure that you stop off of the road, if at all possible. You do not want to stop in a travel lane or in the emergency lane. And then once you're off the road, the first thing you want to do is make sure you turn off all of your vehicle's lights. Now, you might think, if I'm driving and I'm stopped on the side of the road, I want my lights on so that people can see me so that I don't get hit. But if you leave your lights on, and this includes your emergency flashers, if they're on, a car coming up behind you might think that you are just slowly driving in the right lane. And so they might use your lights as a guide. And if they do that and they try to follow you, but you're really parked on the side of the road, then there's a possibility that they might crash into your parked car. So as soon as you're safely pulled over, turn off all of your vehicle's lights and then make sure that you put on your emergency brake and take your foot off the brake. Once you've done all of that, you are going to stay in your car with your seatbelts on until the storm has passed. So the actual steps of what you do if you find yourself in a dust storm are not that complicated, but if you're driving and you suddenly are in a dust storm and are starting to lose visibility, it can be super intimidating and really stressful. And we know that in those stressful situations, it can at times be hard to remember what to do. So I would suggest at the beginning of every summer, having a conversation with your parents, your friends, supervising drivers about what to do if you're in a dust storm. Remind one another that you want to safely pull over off the road, and you want to make sure that all of the lights are off and that you stay in the car buckled up. Not only will talking about it help you to remember what to do if you encounter that situation, but there's a chance that your parents or your friends or family members might need a little refresher on what to do as well. And then if you just get in the habit of at the beginning of every summer having that conversation, it'll be something that hopefully stays in your mind so that if you ever find yourself driving in a dust storm, you can safely navigate that weather condition. So, Kevin, what do you have for us from California?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin, and I'm on the California State staff. And thank you, Michelle, for sharing about the haboobs in Arizona, as well as the dust storms. Had no idea that those driving conditions were out there. Here in California, not only do we have sunny weather and beaches, but we have a very long fire season that happens starting in August. And that happens because in August we have the we have the Anaheim winds that kind of come down and blow all about California, creating some really, really dangerous fire conditions. So I made a little bit of presentation for y'all to, in a very, very rare instance that you might be caught in a wildfire, which is, you know, a little bit more probable nowadays. What can you do to make sure that you stay safe? All right, so I'm gonna share my screen. So. All right. Oh, there we go. Fire. All right. So made a little presentation for some unique driving conditions for California fires. Here's just one thing is that California fires, or fires in general, are no joke. Since 1980, we've seen a dramatic increase in the amount of acres burned due to wildfires. And it's important to know that 90% of wildland fires are actually caused by human activity, which is kind of interesting. California is not the only state that's at risk, but some other states that are at risk. Arizona is another one. We got Texas at number 2 and whatnot. So, but California does have it bad. The top 10 deadliest fires all come from California. The most dangerous one being the Camp Fire in the past couple years. Around 85 folks died under the Camp Fire. And in 2018, we had a total of around 3,655 people die from fires. It's a 20% increase from 2009. Yeah, so fires are no joke. Here's an example of the Camp Fire. You can kind of see, even though it's in the wilderness, along the road, people are still going to be driving in these conditions. The other fire this is the Tinaja Fire. So this is actually around 5 miles away from my house. And it burned it was burning in one of the state parks that was close to us. So a lot of folks do live in that area, and still very scary. I could see the fire from my house. And here's an example of a fire. So say you don't go to the wilderness that often. Well, this was the Getty Fire in 2019. So this is near where I went to school. There was a fire. The Getty is a museum out in Los Angeles, in western Los Angeles, Santa Monica area. And so you can kind of see the fire is right next to the freeway. So still pretty relevant and dangerous. So what do you do if you're caught driving in a wildfire? Any guesses? No? Okay, well, you should avoid driving in the fire at all costs. That's probably the number one thing. Don't get caught driving in a wildfire by heeding evacuation orders as recommended by officials. That includes listening to law enforcement and the fire department. I personally will follow California Fire on Twitter just to see if there's any fires nearby. And you want to pay attention to keywords you'll hear, like voluntary, mandatory evacuation, or immediate threat. Oftentimes people get caught in fires because they don't think that just because there's a mandatory evacuation, they might think, oh, you know, it's okay. Like I see the fire. The fire's all the way over there. It's not going to get over here. But fires can spread very quickly. Fires don't really move slowly. They can jump from spot to spot due to like wind conditions. So wind conditions, which change from day to day, from hour to hour, can transform a fire from, you know, not too dangerous to very dangerous. But if you have to drive in a wildfire, here's some tips. Make sure you check social media to see where the fire is heading and how you can avoid it. Use GPS to avoid traffic because there's going to be a lot of folks evacuating. You want to drive slowly and turn on your headlights and hazard lights. in order to be visible to all of the other drivers in those smoky conditions. If there are flames approaching your car, just pull over to a spot where there isn't too much vegetation, side of the road where there's a lot of dirt, stuff where it's not too flammable. And if you are pulled over, make sure you roll up your windows and close your air vents. Smoke can get in the car, so you want to prevent that by recirculating your air conditioning instead of using the air conditioning setting that takes air from outside. And if you are stuck in a fire, God forbid, like I said, park away from vegetation, rolling up and closing your air vents, and keeping on your hazard lights if you have to just stay parked in a fire. Other things you want to do, and this stuff is a little less known, you want to lay on the floor of your car because heat rises and the radiant heat from the windows can be really dangerous. And so it's going to be coolest at the floor of your car. You want to protect yourself from exposed skin. So using a wool blanket or any sort of covering that isn't synthetic fibers, because those synthetic fibers, kind of like plastic, will melt. And you don't want to use wet material either. You don't want to like wet a towel and cover yourself, because that the wet material will conduct heat and could likely burn you. Lastly, drink water and stay calm. Some folks might think that a car would explode, but panicking isn't the way to go. Be sure to stay in your car. It's safer in your car than outside in the middle of a fire. And yeah, so those are some resources for y'all when you are stuck in a fire, but mostly remember, just stay calm, stay cool, evacuate if you can, and if not, stay parked and stay low. Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Kevin. I don't know if I'd want to be in my car in a fire or just in the middle of a fire at any type of way or position at all. So yeah, get out when they tell you to get out. That's the big thing. All right, so my name is Carrie Ferguson. I'm the Colorado State Coordinator for SADD. And today I would like to talk to you about and I don't know if you guys have these in your state. There aren't a whole lot, but they're kind of gaining popularity. It's called a continuous flow intersection, also known as a crossover displaced left turn, or let's see what else it's called. Yeah, a displaced left turn or a crossover displaced left turn. We just got a couple of these here in Colorado in the last few years. And they caused a bit of controversy at first, people not too sure, you know, darn it, change is bad, that sort of thing. And I was probably one of them. And there's still a learning curve. Folks who aren't sure what's going on will make mistakes at these, and that can be dangerous. But so what is a continuous flow intersection? It's an alternative design to an at-grade road junction. So like vehicles that are attempting to turn across, so you're making a left turn, you're going to cross actually about 1,000 feet back from the main intersection. Let me show you what I mean here. So lots of confusing things out on the road, but this continuous flow, so this is a normal traffic situation, driving along, doing your thing. And when you come to an intersection and you want to make a left turn, normally you sit at that main intersection line and wait for your little green light, and away you go. This particular traffic situation, when you have higher amounts of traffic, causes a lot of wait time for everybody. Look, at those people aren't going anywhere. So the solution for this was a continuous flow intersection. So here you can see that there are two directions of traffic and they're flowing straight through the intersection. But if you look back here, if you wanted to make a left turn, this is where you would stop and you'd sit and wait there for your time to line up on the other side. You actually, when you get that green light, cross over, and it's a little disconcerting, but you come up to this other wait line, and then when the traffic turns green again, everybody is going at once. You've got both turning at the same time. So here you can see those left turns. This is coming from the other direction, if you were coming, so the other one was east-west. If you're going north-south, you can see that there's a traffic sign. So when you make that turn, if you were like at the last cars, you'd probably end up at that stoplight. You'd have to make sure that you are paying attention and stop at that stoplight. Making a right-hand turn onto a continuous flow is normal. You just get into that little merge lane and get up to speed, and away you go. Looking at traffic wait times, so a normal 4-phase cycle that has the turns go and then the straights go from one direction, and then the turns go and the straights go from the other direction. It takes a little bit longer, and you can see for the continuous flow, your wait time is significantly less. So this is our continuous flow here in Colorado Springs. This is at Woodman and Union. And coming down the hill, you'll see that there's a sign. It'll say South Union Boulevard, and it gives you a little arrow. And then when you come around the corner, you hop into that lane. People who aren't paying attention and go past it have actually gone up to that light that you can see up in the distance there and tried to turn across. Not a good idea. Our wait time here to queue up was 30 seconds to a minute maybe. We got our green light, and I should have washed the windshield before we did this. Sorry about that. And I am not driving, by the way. I was a passenger here. So then we queued up over here. Our light actually turned green as we crossed over, so we didn't even have to wait over here. And away we get. And again, it's kind of disconcerting to see that ongoing traffic on the other side of you. And we made it across. This was coming from going north to south. And as I said before, once you get here and you turn around the corner, you can't see it, but there's a little red light, green light over there, and you may have to end up stopping. This was the completed project. Back up a little bit here. Oops. So here's where we were, and we came across and then made our turn here. And then the other direction, you don't have the continuous flow going this way. You only have it going one way. But as you come across, you may have to stop at this stoplight here to wait for these folks to cross over. It's a little strange at night when you turn here to see folks coming this way, and there's kind of a curve, so it makes it look like they're coming straight at you. So learning curve. We also have something called a divergent diamond. This was the before, and this was the after. So you get to that stoplight, and then you cross over, and then here it is without the stuff. Then you turn to get on the freeway to go the other direction or continue on your way. So two very strange things that are going on here in Colorado. Any questions about continuous flow / crossovers / divergent diamonds?
I have a question.
I think yes.
So
no questions?
It looks
right.
like it does decrease.
sorry.
I have a question. It looks like it does decrease traffic based on like the graph that you showed. Does it increase accidents because people aren't used to those type of intersections?
I'd have to look at the data. I know I saw accidents and crashes there before that was put in, and I've seen, as I said, I've seen people skipping the prior crossover. I've seen them skip that and go out to the light, and then even though there's no turn, they go ahead and try to turn, and I've seen that happen, but I haven't seen a crash from it. So I'd have to look at the data. Again, I think as these are implemented, folks who normally drive that pathway, they learn how it's supposed to go. It's the folks who are not used to it that end up causing issues. So, but I'd have to look at the data. I believe it's safer and also cost effective too. Once that's in, they say it's actually very cost effective, and I'm assuming that they actually add crash data into that as far as paying out for that sort of thing too. So thanks, Kevin.
Very
Any other
cool.
questions? I will look at that data, post it in the in the notes below. Thanks. And let's see, I think it's a Louisiana turn. Dylan, what have you got for us?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Carrie. Okay, so my name is Dylan, and I am the Louisiana SADD State Coordinator. And today I'm going to talk to you about a unique driving situation that we have seen in more recent years here in Louisiana for sure. And there's a lot of different things that play a factor in our flooded roads that we've seen, especially from flash flooding. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit about the Great Flood of 2016. So in Louisiana in 2016, we had a massive flood in the southern part of our state, and especially in the southeastern part of our state, which is where I reside. And so we had a lot of homes that were inundated with floodwaters, cars that were stalled all over our city. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of what that looked like. But this was in August of 2016. Over a period of 3 days, we had more than 20 inches of rain in this part of our state. And the water rose extremely quickly, and a lot of the roads flooded while people were driving on them. And so here are some pictures that you're going to see where people literally just had to get out of their car and start swimming. I mean, so it literally was a very devastating event. This is just a subdivision where you can see people's houses were inundated with water. And in fact, the house that I live in received 4 foot of water. But here is some cars that are on the road. And so as you can see, this could have been a mixture of cars that were on the road that were just stalled and left there. You also see people were trying to escape the city. They were trying to get out. Of course, though, the best method of transportation at that point is by boat, because cars could not get through the water, right? So, but what we've seen in response to this after the flood, again, this is another picture of our city, but in response to the flood, we've seen that with just a shower of rain and I've had to drive through this twice on my way home. I mean, we'd see, you know, in more recent time that when we're on our way home, our roads just begin to accumulate with water. And a lot of this has to do with the land in Louisiana. A lot of this has to do with the construction that's taking place and how things are being built up, which causes other parts of our city to kind of become a little bit like a bathtub where it just kind of holds water. And so I've literally been in 2 situations where I've been on the way home and one part of the road has absolutely no water. It starts raining, and by the time I get to the end of it, it's covered in water. And it's crazy how we've had so many drainage issues in pretty recent years. So the best thing to do is to not drive through water in which you cannot see the bottom of the road, right? So the best thing to do would be to turn around, don't drown, because that's essentially what we would want you to do. Because the bad thing is that water hides all of the dips and debris in the roadway, and you cannot see the road. As you might have noticed in some of those pictures, you know, you could not see the roads because they were so covered with water. So the best thing to do is to definitely not travel through them. And you never want to drive through water that is flowing, right? Standstill water, there's we can kind of teach you something to kind of get you through it, and if you absolutely have to, but you never want to drive through water that is actively flowing. So water can damage your car, especially the exhaust system, which could leave you immobile in some regard and also cost you a lot of money. So if it's water that you cannot walk through, you definitely do not want to drive through it, right? So the first thing is to think about when you come to a road that is, received what we would call flash flooding in Louisiana, where the road is just extremely flooded. The first thing to do is, if you can avoid it, don't go through it, right? If you can avoid it, go another route, something like that. That's the best thing to do. If it's moving, you absolutely do not want to go through it. But if you can see through the water and it looks like it's not going to cover more than half of your tire, then it is safe to drive through, as long as you drive through the center of the road, which is very dangerous, because when you're driving in water, the safest part of the road is the center part of the road, okay? Because On the edges, those are the parts of the road that are the most deep. So what experts say is to drive in the center of the road. However, that means that you could have oncoming traffic. So it could be extremely dangerous to drive through these kind of conditions. Okay. So the best thing to do is if people are driving, you would follow behind them, right? You would follow behind them because their tires are going to move water in a way that you're going to be able to drive behind them. Now, again, we're assuming that the water is to where you can see through it, right? It's not covering more than half of your tire. If it's going to cover more than half your tire, you could essentially flood your car. You could actually have water coming through your car. And when we had the flood of 2016 here, we had a lot of people that happened to. They actually got trapped in their car, and because the water was so deep, they couldn't even open up the door, right? They had to bust through their windows to get out of their car. So it's extremely dangerous to drive in these conditions. So we're definitely not advising that you do. We're just saying if you're in a situation and you have to get home, right? And it's to where you can get home safely, these are the safest protocol of things to do. However, if you know that it's not safe to drive through this water because it's covering more than half of your tire, or you cannot see the road, you definitely don't want to drive through it, because if you cannot see where ditches are, you're going to end up in a ditch, right? So you want to make sure that you can see the road, okay? You always want to stay in the center so that the people in front of you can actually help direct you through. Drive slowly. You never want to drive fast. And if you can put your car in a low gear, you want to do that as well. That helps to protect your car. Also, if your car is an automatic, by you making sure that your speed is low, you'll remain in a lower gear. It also says that you can dry your brakes by once you get through the water, you can tap on your brakes very slowly to just kind of assist and making sure that you have traction and that you can get moving. So again, these are things that you would do in the event that you're on the road that is flooding, right? So you have to get through it, but it's flooding because you're on it, because there's clearly a drainage issue. And in Louisiana, we've seen an increased number of cases of roads in our state that are flooding because of drainage issues. And so I don't know if there's other states out there that are dealing with the same issue, but it's definitely something that we've seen in more recent years. In fact, one of our main issues that we've seen here is one of our local interstates here and where we live. They built a protective mechanism in the center of the interstate that keeps crashes from going oncoming. It keeps you from crossing over the interstate into oncoming traffic. And so they created essentially this barricade on the interstate. Well, what it did was, though, it stopped the water and the flow of water. So sometimes, the mechanisms that we put in place to protect people have really great intentions, but in this particular regard, it affects with the flow of water. It affects the flow of the natural drainage of water. And so this is, again, an issue that we've definitely seen here, and we're just trying to navigate it through as best as we can as well. But if this is something that you see on your way home or your route to school or work, and you have to get there and you're on the road that's flooding, this is the best protocol. Again, if you can avoid it at all costs, don't go through it. Avoid it if you can. Don't drive through it. That's the safest thing to do. Try to find a different way if you can, but if you absolutely have to, this is the best way to do it. So that's what we have to report on from Louisiana. And now I'm going to pass it on to Ohio.
Hi, I'm Teresa, and I am the Ohio coordinator for SADD. Now, when we were asked about what our unusual driving situations were, I had several to pick from. First of all, if you're not from Ohio or you've not traveled in Ohio, a lot of times people think that Ohio is kind of boring. It's just one big flat plate, and there couldn't be anything more true. So I thought about the diversity in Ohio as far as our landscape goes. We have a shoreline in Ohio, believe it or not. We have the Lake Erie shoreline. We have the flattened area of the state, which is through the center. And then we have the southern part, which is where I'm from originally. And it is a more hilly area. And that was created from the glaciers coming across our state and stopping at the southernmost point and creating the foothills of the Appalachian or Appalachian mountain chain, depending on where you're from. But I thought, well, maybe that's not the one I want to choose. Then I thought about one of Ohio's favorite people who are from Ohio's complaint. We have a joke in Ohio: if you don't like the weather here, wait 10 minutes, it'll change. And sure enough, it can. And it can change from one end of the state to the other. It's not uncommon that I've driven from Cleveland, Ohio, which is in the northern part of the state, to Columbus, which is dead center, and a totally different weather pattern, transpired during that period of time. But everybody deals with weather. And so I thought about deer. We are white-tailed deer country, and we have these beautiful signs that tell you where they like to cross. But let me assure you, deers rarely use crosswalks. They go where they want to. Trust and believe. And they love to do it at night when you can see them the least. And I thought, well, yes, but one of our coordinators, she was telling me about animals much bigger that cross her roadway. So I thought, well, maybe that's not exciting enough. Then I remembered something that happened last spring. And I did a little research on it. I'm a history person, and I'm going to show you what happened last spring, not far from me. As a matter of fact, it blocked my way to my favorite Walmart, Kroger's grocery store, and Odd Lots, which I am a huge fan of. And I'm going to see if I can't bring this up for you. And there it is. Looks like a gigantic hole, doesn't it? Let's see. I think I lost my picture here. There it goes. There we go. See that? Can you imagine on your way to work one morning and running into this? Let me tell you what that is. That is a road collapse. Now, it doesn't happen much here in Ohio, but it does happen every now and then. And there's a reason for that. First of all, what some may not realize is that Ohio was actually covered in water millions of years ago. We had an ocean. Also, too, we have extreme weather conditions here. It's not uncommon to have a beautiful spring day and it go to snow just like that. Now, granted, we're not like Arizona, who has those 90 to 100-degree days all the time, or maybe Alaska, where who knows what kind of cold weather you're going to find. But it's not uncommon for us to dip down below zero and then jump right back up again. Right now, we're in the 90s here in Ohio. So that causes some interesting contracting and constricting of the roadways. Finally, our soil here is limestone, shale, and sandstone. Can you imagine trying to build a road on that? So I have to give credit to the Ohio Department of Transportation and their hard work, not only in building these roads, but making sure that they keep them in great shape, as well as our county engineers. Now, finally, and this is hard to believe, there are underground rivers and streams. I am from Southern Ohio, and several feet down below the city to which I live was the Taze River. It ran under the city and has since the beginning of the time I know and beyond. So you have all of this going on, and if that's not enough, Ohio sits on a major fault line. So again, it's not common that you'll see this, but every now and then this can happen. And on this particular highway, the gentleman who was traveling that morning, and it was just at the start of our state shutting down during to COVID-19, ran into it. And fortunately, he was fine. There were people behind him, but they saw what happened and they stopped. And this road was closed for some time. There's an important point there. No matter what you're doing, no matter what state you're driving in, paying attention and your focus being on the road is the most important thing you can do. And for a little bonus, just in case you didn't know this happened, because this was big news around here for those of us who couldn't get to Walmart and everywhere else we wanted to go, the Ohio Department of Transportation has a wonderful website called ogo.gov, ohgo.gov. It tells you of crashes, weather conditions. It even tells you the surface temperature and has cameras to let you know whatever region you're traveling in, you can find those problems that might exist out there. So when you're traveling in the Buckeye State and you think you might be bored, let me assure you, you won't be. but I know that there's another fascinating state to travel through, and that is New York. Lauren, why don't you take it away?
I will try my hardest. Those have all been terrifying so far, so thank you. And yeah, we have some sinkhole issues too, but we're going to talk today about one of my favorite things to surprise people with in Northeast roadway conditions, the jug handle, which I was actually kind of surprised that most of you were unfamiliar with, being in traffic safety land. So this is something that is typically found in New Jersey or attributed to New Jersey, but of course they're our neighbor state and they're actually all over the country. So let's dig in just for fun. So just real quickly, they've been used for over 50 years. We're basically going to teach you today how to make a left by making a right. There's over 600 of them in New Jersey. They're just everywhere in New Jersey. But again, they're all over the country now, so we really need to be more aware of how to use these because like Carrie was talking about, we should not be making a left at certain intersections, and it helps with that continuous flow of traffic. It helps cut down on crashes at intersections. So it is helpful, but it can be extremely confusing. And there's actually 3 different types of jug handle ramps, which I didn't realize, so I learned a thing today too. So basically what jug handles do are they're at grade crossings, like Carrie was saying. They basically permit us to make those left-hand turns or U-turns by making a right. So it eliminates all left-hand turns. It does tend to provide greater safety through these weird turns, let's call it. The fatality rates are definitely lower on this one in injury crashes, approximately 26% less actually, which I found pretty considerable. And they do save space too. So one of the biggest problems we have up here in the Northeast is that our roads are old and we have nowhere to go with them. So if we need to expand a road and it's been a 2-lane highway since like 1812, there's nowhere for us to go anymore with our roads. So jug handle turns can actually help us save some space and create turn lanes that we otherwise would not have been able to. So the first ramp is a forward ramp. Basically, all of our turns are going to exit at this ramp. It kind of looks like a ramp that you would normally exit on from any other highway. If you want to make a left turn, you're going to exit at this ramp. And if you want to make a U-turn, you're going to exit at this ramp. And this is a sketch in engineering terms of what that would look like. Can you all see the little blue dot here? Good. Yes. So basically what's going to happen, and I have a graphic later, we'll look at that later too, but you're going to drive up the road this way, and if you would like to make a left, you can see here at the intersection, there is no way to do that. You are going to exit here through this ramp, and you're going to wait your turn to cross the median and make a left on the cross street. So instead of making a left, you are making a right, a left, and a straight. If you want to make a U-turn, you're going to do the same thing, getting in the lane on this side of the street, the opposing street, and make a left from this lane. So basically, it's allowing you to make a left out of only this cross street and not the major interstate. Does that kind of make sense? So the second turn that we could experience in a jug handle turn is a U-turn ramp. So this just allows for safer U-turns, but there's usually no intersection at these exchanges. It's generally in just like the middle of a freeway to be able to make a U-turn. It would look like this. So you'd be coming up the main road and you would be driving to this ramp, like an exit ramp, to be able to make a U-turn, cross the road, and come back. Same on the other side, driving down the road to the U-turn exit to be able to come around to the other side of the road. So basically you just can't make a U-turn across the median the way most of us are usually used to doing that from the left-hand lane. And then we have the super fun reverse ramps. So reverse ramps are basically like driving just through the intersection you wanted to make a left at and using an exit ramp for a highway off of the right-hand side after the intersection. So to make a left turn, you would use this exit ramp, and to make a U-turn, you would use this exit ramp, which I now understand sounds extremely confusing. So here's a nice picture. So what you're going to do is drive down the highway. And if you would like to make a left or a U-turn, you're going to continue driving through this intersection, and exit here in the right-hand lane as though you were exiting a highway to be able to come down on this crossroad and go straight. So that's your left-hand turn, or to make a U-turn and go in the other direction. Does that make sense? So really, this is something that people often say, is this just a Jersey thing, like because it's so prevalent in New Jersey? And it's not. While New Jersey does have a lot of them, and they are kind of known for this, it's actually called the Jersey left sometimes, we also find them in plenty of other states, and it's something that's continuously growing as we find that we need more space for things. Again, because we can't really expand roads a lot in the Northeast, we've built up too many areas that we can't make roads any bigger. This is just a way for us to be able to continuously flow traffic a little bit better. And cut down on our crashes and fatality rates. So if you live in any of the states that are mentioned there, you might want to check out where those jug handles exist, because it's really important that you know how to navigate these things and that they are coming up. So I think the biggest thing for me that's confusing about a jug handle turn is that there's just a lot of signage. It's something that you really need to be hyper vigilant about looking at what's coming up. So you could be seeing like 15 different signs that say turn right here, but if you want to make a left, make a right. And also, you just need to be really aware of where you're going, and also not necessarily trust the little map ladies, because Google Maps or Waze could be telling you to make a left and you can't necessarily make a true left. You may have to make a right to make a left. So just be very conscious of signage. Just these particularly no left turns means you should be looking for some other way to make a left-hand turn. Maybe this will play. Or maybe not. Well, I see this hasn't changed at least. So our traffic here is really what we'd be looking at most to illustrate what's going on. So this traffic here would be crossing the main intersection to use this reverse ramp and make a left and go across the street. They would be using this ramp here to be able to make a left down this road, or they could exit here to also make a right and follow this path if they wanted to. And over here would be the example of our U-turn jug handle. Again, they just look like jug handles, like the handle of an actual jug, like a drinking jug, which is why they're called that. This would be the U-turn turn here. Really, jug handles can make intersections safer. They can reduce crashes. They can increase our capacity on the road, but they definitely can create some confusion. So we know that, you know, all of these great things are a piece of the engineering, the intersection delays, the higher capacities, the travel time being lower. But we also know that we need to know how to navigate them. So the Federal Highway Safety Administration has some information there on that website if you want to check out how to use jug handles a little bit better. And that is what I have in the jug handle department. Any questions? Carrie?
So on the U-turn, does the road go up and over the other road and then come down on the other side, or under?
Nope.
Or
neither. It's all at the same grade.
What?
Yep, it's all at the same grade. That's what kind of confuses people a lot, I think. It is all at the same grade. So you've got the two highways going like an equal sign, and then you've just got that, you know, U-turn coming off to the right. It's kind of like you're pulling into a park and then you're just turning around. So Carrie brings us to the greatest point that we have for all of these different situations, whether they be weather or a traffic or road variation. We just need to slow down. We need to be able to pay attention and see what's going on around us, to be able to notice our surroundings and the different road conditions and how they may be changing with different weather, or if we're driving in a place we're unfamiliar with, to be able to understand the signage that's coming at us and how we might be able to make a left by making a right, or diverging over a highway to get on it. It is confusing. We know that it is, but we also know that it's something we can navigate with a little bit of practice and a little bit of patience. So thank you for joining us today on this wacky webcast Wednesday. We appreciate all of your attention and your time. And if you have any questions about some weird roads in your area, we actually really enjoyed doing this session, so we're happy to do this again. Goodbye, everyone.